Yes, guy. All revved up and ready to go. Mail it in Friday. Tatti, Dave Feschuk with you. Dave, everything good?
Going better for us than it is for the Edmonton Elks.
Oh,
Batman.
Oh, guy. Oh, no, guy. What
How do
was
you
that?
explain this?
You don't.
22-0 straight home losses, tying the North American sports all-time record held by the St. Louis Browns, who turned into the Baltimore Orioles for the young kids out there. What do you say to this? This is incredible.
Not much, guy. You can't even say, see you next week, guy. It's not going to work.
I mean,
It's tough. I wouldn't want to go
priceless.
through that. And football has the intensity. I mean, baseball is different because there's games all the time. But this, the intensity of prepping for a football game once a week.
Yeah.
That's really intense. And to have that negative news on a weekly basis, and certainly at home, that's a tough sell.
Yeah, I mean, they went 4-14 last year, all 4 wins on the road. They're 0-6 this year, the 3 of their 6 losses at home. I mean, this is just stunning. Like, they haven't won at home since 2019 when they were called the Edmonton Eskimos. Quite something.
It is. There's a word for it. Something will sum it up nicely. not gonna get into that. I have thoughts for anybody who's a fan of that team and all the players and management, because they're not doing this on purpose. This is how it's working out. They lost. What was the score last night? 37-29. And Hamilton lost a quarterback again.
Yeah.
So Schultz is out, and that didn't look good. I don't have a word on what it is, but he was grabbing his leg, which is always not a good sign. So, once again, the quarterback squeeze in the CFL is on. We're going to talk CFL later on with Matt Dunnigan at 6:30. I'm just going to go through this because I realized yesterday I didn't set up the show until it was already well underway. So throw out the appetizers. Dave Poulin will be by in about 10 minutes. Jordi Fernandez will be by at the bottom of the hour. He is the new coach of the Canadian men's basketball team. Keegan Matheson talking baseball at 5:05. Bev Priestman at 5:30. Now, we stayed an inordinate amount of time last night to record that interview because of the time difference between here and there, meaning Australia and New Zealand, which is where the Women's World Cup goes.
Right.
And it starts Thursday night, next Thursday, against Nigeria at 10:30. All the action on TSN and CTV. So that was a pretty good conversation, I have to say.
It was. Yeah. Looking forward to the Women's World Cup. And, that's one of the great mysteries of this Canadian national women's program. They've been so good at the Olympics, Jim, and haven't been able to break through at a World Cup since they came fourth back in 2003, back when Christine Sinclair was just a youngin'. Now she's 40 years old and presumably on her last World Cup, although never say never with Christine Sinclair. She hasn't said she was retiring anytime soon.
No.
She may be around for the Paris Olympics for all we know, and she may be around in 4 more years. I don't know, but it could be her swan song. You never know.
Griff will be by at 6:05. Richard Griffin, veteran baseball reporter. I said Matt Dunnigan at 6:30. OverDrive is brought to you by FanDuel, bringing you everything from the opening line to the final score. And it's mailed in Friday, but we have jackets because yesterday we didn't have jackets and it was cool in here.
Yeah. The thermostat's set apparently in Montreal in this building.
And somebody was really warm there.
Apparently in Montreal, they
Yeah.
figured crank it down, over air condition the place. And the one thing about the summer, I hate the over air conditioning.
Oh, I don't like feeling like I'm in the meat department or compartment, I guess, in the fridge. I don't like that feeling. But I don't like too hot either.
I like too hot. I
Do you?
take too hot over air conditioning.
Well, you're a newspaper guy.
Yeah, that's what it is. Basically a feral
Us
animal.
coddled broadcast people don't like that.
That's right.
I like it just
Ruin
right.
your makeup.
Yeah. No makeup. Sorry, guy.
All right.
Sorry on that one. By the way, the Canadian men's basketball team unveiled their roster for the FIBA World Cup. So Murray, Barrett, Shea is on it. Shea Gilgeous-Alexander.
Oh, yeah. Good roster.
Yeah, we'll go through all this. Wiggins not playing for Canada, and so we'll get into that. Jays, by the way, cranking up their second half, starting tonight. Barrios will go Gosman tomorrow, Kikuchi on Sunday, as Arizona's in town for the weekend. So, the break is over. Now it gets serious.
Got to rev it up.
Yeah.
It's time.
Absolutely.
And they got to hope they get more out of the bats, right? I mean, as much as it's been pretty smooth sailing for everybody in the rotation outside of the guy we all know has had his struggles in Alek Manoah, but got to get more hits with runners in scoring position. Got to cash in some runs and really should build up a cushion here. They're kind of, you don't want to be on the bubble of the playoffs when you're the Blue Jays, when there's the extra playoff spot and you're expected to be a contender. You got to get more firmly entrenched in the playoff picture here, if for my money, between now and the trade deadline, so that there's a little more clarity about who you are and what you're heading for.
Well, think of where they would be if you could reverse some of the things that didn't happen in the first half. If you could reverse that just abysmal divisional record.
Yeah.
If you could, turn things around on scoring runners or driving in runners in scoring position, not being defensively irresponsible at times. If you could tighten all that up, and they're going to have to improve on their position, but if you could erase some of that damage, we'd be talking in different terms, wouldn't we?
You can, but you could definitely look at it that way. But look, I mean, all that stuff's correctable, right? And I mean,
Sure.
A lot of the analytics guys that you sort of read that cover the team, they're saying, hey, this will turn around, especially the runners in scoring position problem. There's some luck involved in that, right? As much as I also believe there's a mental side of it too, and the way you approach it, the way you don't get phased by pressure situations. I'm not sure this team has completely conquered that yet, and we're going to find out if they are any closer between now and the end of the season.
Would you be willing to admit that over the last 2.5 years, they've just simply left too much on the table for different reasons each time?
They certainly have.
Yeah.
They certainly have. This has been a team of potential for a long time. Now they got to deliver with some actual results.
So something that we talked about yesterday, John Morosi reports that the Angels will consider trade offers for Ohtani. And I guess the question that comes out of that, would losing Ohtani be a bigger failure than not winning a playoff series with Mike Trout? I mean, that's like the daily double or the negative daily double, right? You've got these guys and you can't go anywhere.
Yeah, that's an inexcusable. I mean, which one's worse? I mean, obviously it's terrible for baseball that Mike Trout's been to the playoffs once and had 3 games, and has never really had a chance to show his talents in the most important time of the year. But Ohtani's the unicorn, right? Like there's never been anything like this guy, and the idea that you bring him over, you win the lottery for Ohtani, and then you can't turn it into anything. You better turn it into something between now and the trade deadline.
That might be a category for a future show. Missed opportunity.
Yeah.
You could put the Leafs in that category to date, couldn't you?
Where do we start on that one?
Well, you could, though, right?
Yeah, when you're 1 for 8 in a playoff series.
But when you have that number one overall pick and it's that guy.
Yeah.
I mean, if you think back to, if you want to go back maybe 35, maybe even 40 years, Lemieux shows up, and it took them a couple of years to understand they had to build around him.
Mm-hmm.
Because he was just such a phenom in terms of what he could do.
Yeah.
But team game, so they had to add a lot of pieces around him before it finally gelled, and then it gelled.
Yeah, well, it didn't hurt that they had a bunch of other great players around him, and Jaromir Jagr and a cast of
Ron Francis,
Hall of Famers. Yeah, so it's obviously you need more than one guy, and let's face it, Auston Matthews ain't no Mario Lemieux, but awfully good player, and to be 1 for 8 in the postseason series, it's not what they should be, but it's who they are, and that's what I think is the disconnect. Brendan Shanahan is saying, wait, there'll be something better eventually. A lot of us are saying, no, we don't need to wait. We know who they are. They're the team that goes 1 for 8 in postseason series, and that's not a good batting average.
No, once again. And Dave Poulin will help us untangle a lot of this. The Honda Indy, by the way, is going on in Toronto this weekend. You can listen to it on TSN 1050 or watch it on TSN. So stay away from the Lakeshore for obvious reasons because it's closed.
Well, unless you like the sound of revving engines, in which case, get over to the Lakeshore.
Yeah, and I admire people that sit there because it's that fast.
You don't like the thrill of the speed?
Well, I used to cover the race, and luckily I was in a booth with the TV monitors.
I got to say,
because it's fast.
I've got to say, like I've been down there many times, and I've been lucky enough to go around the track in one of those 2-seat Indy cars. That was fun.
Yeah.
But to be just sitting beside the track, like standing next to the fence.
Oh, earplugs.
Yeah, maybe.
Oh yeah, no, I had earplugs.
I'm probably deaf because I've stood there.
I had an earpiece and earplugs because it was so loud.
But for me, like I've done that for Formula One and I've done it for IndyCar and a couple other NASCAR races. And if you like racing on TV or at least watch it tangentially, or you watch F1 Drive to Survive on Netflix, you got to, if you've never actually experienced
It's a great
the
thing.
phenomena
Yeah.
of 350 kilometers an hour down this, whatever it is at Lakeshore. They don't go 350, but they get up to 300 plus.
I guess it's turn 3 that comes off Lakeshore.
Yeah.
That's impressive.
Yeah, when they go from 300-ish
Yeah.
to, 60 kilometers an hour to get around that corner, that is a sight to behold.
And you and I talked off air yesterday about moments that happen when you're there, and it's a defining moment. And certainly at any auto race, regardless of whatever it is, there's potential to see that.
Yeah, you got to experience that, the physical force, like the physics of it. In my view, I mean, I've really enjoyed it. I'm not like a gearhead. I don't live and die with this stuff, but
It's phenomenal.
It is something to see. It is something to experience. Just the power and the thrill of that speed.
This is a great weekend. The one in Montreal is fantastic.
It really is.
It's a great track.
Tremendous track. And you know what? The Quebecois racing fan, they love auto racing. Like they really embrace it in a way that Toronto's done great for the Indy. Like people show up for the Indy, and they've shown up for many, many years. But it's on a different level in Montreal.
It's different. Yeah. And that's the best way to say it. As a compliment, it's different.
It's a whole city festival. The whole downtown gets hepped up by it, right?
Supper at Gibby's. Yeah, it's a great time.
Yeah, fun times.
I always put that in there. So also tennis, we're talking about Wimbledon the other day. Djokovic and Alcaraz will meet in the final, and they'll both be here at the National Bank Open in early August in Toronto. So can Alcaraz pull it off?
This is the one we've been waiting for, right? Like,
yeah,
the number one seed against the number one player in history, really. And it is kind of laughable that Alcaraz is the number one seed because Djokovic is the heavy, heavy favorite to beat him. But
he's so machine-like.
He is, mentally and physically.
Yeah, I mean, even if there's a point there where he looks like he's going to have some trouble, you just know, just come back in 10 minutes, he would have rallied out of it.
That's what it is.
Yeah.
Just when the other guy thinks he might have a chance, Djokovic shuts the door, and he's been doing it for so long. It's incredible. But look, Alcaraz is the next wave, right? He's a young kid, 20-something years old, and he's probably going to get him at some point. It's just a matter of how much experience does he need to build up before he can get over that hump. Let's hope he's if you're in Alcaraz's camp, you got to hope he's not the Maple Leafs of tennis.
No.
Who shows tremendous potential year after year after year, but just cannot get over the hump. Then again, the Maple Leafs of tennis would not be in the Wimbledon final. They would have lost in the
guy. As we segue into Dave Poulin's guest shot here. Dave, welcome. How are you today, sir?
Very well, gentlemen. Very well. Settling into the summer life, as the hockey players are. And they'll get into ebbs and flows of what's happening with them depending on where they are in their contract status. So there's always lots to talk about.
Well, look, it's Mail-In Friday, and so I'm going to let you pick your topic because both of these have sort of gone on similar tracks. You can either go with what happens with Nylander or Samsonov, just because I think we've exhausted all innocent conversation here. So pick your topic and take us down the road.
Well, I think we should try and sign Ohtani. I got to be honest with you.
Oh, okay.
Love to be the agent there.
Listen, would he not fit into a hockey? He'd be great in hockey. He'd probably play both. I mean, he'd probably play in the defense of the power play. He'd play up front. He'd be terrific. Everybody. It's interesting to watch a potential free agent like that and see, who's going to get involved. And the big threshold for the Leafs was July 1st. Well, July 1st is long past. Everything is calm, and I think that's a credit to Brad Treliving that he calmed everything down when he came in and said, essentially, it's not going to happen on July 1st. Simply not. What July 1st triggered was a lot of options for the players. And the players are in a place now where they start going to social events over the summer. So I know, I've heard the guys talking. There was a high-profile get-together at a Tyson Berry event around a wedding. And when those things happen, then the chatter starts. And there's ebbs and flows to pressure points if you're an unsigned player or you're a player that can extend at that point. And a lot of it depends on your own situation, your own family situation. There's so many variables involved. And it might be a lot different for some of these young Leafs if they were married with children and had schools to think about and all those different things, but they don't. and it gives them a lot of leverage and a lot of, ability to just say, hey, I'm just going to sit tight and wait here and see what happens to the market.
Yeah, sit tight and wait, Dave. It works for the players, but does it work for the team, especially in the case of Nylander? We had Bruce Boudreau on earlier in the week, and he was talking about how the family genes suggest, Michael Nylander, his dad was, in Bruce's words, a stubborn guy who was a hard sign, who was very staunch in his negotiating prowess. William's shown, some 11th hour guts, if you want to call it that, in his previous negotiation. Can a team like the Maple Leafs in the situation they're in really afford to wait this guy out?
I'm not sure they have a choice, Dave.
Okay.
I mean, now he's got his no trade clause, and, he's in a position where at least he controls some of it. And, there's different situations. You look at the DeBrincat situation, he didn't have any power at all, yet they created a sort of a power in that he wouldn't extend with the team he was traded to, if it wasn't the team that he wanted to be traded to. So he essentially they created their own market. And in terms of Michael, I laugh because how many teams did Michael play for? Did he play for 11 teams, 10 teams?
Apparently had, quite a few agents too. Quite a few different agents.
But think about it. For a guy that talented to skip through 10 or 11 teams in the NHL, it said something. And that was a time of no salary cap. And it was always that, essentially his team wasn't happy with them or he wasn't happy with his team at that point. And he went back to a couple of places. So, and I'm not sure I would say that's the gene. I think Williams is his own guy and he's got his own representation and I don't think that's a factor. The biggest issue here was the 5 and 6 years for Matthews and Marner in terms of giving them maximum dollars and not making it an 8-year deal.
Right.
That's essentially the biggest deal. And you look at it today, guys, going into next year, Matthews is still the 4th highest player in the last year of his deal.
Yeah.
Marner's the 9th highest paid player. Now, Willie comes in just under 100. Next year, he'll be the 96th highest paid player in the league. And so, because essentially he's up first, if you will, and although, it could be he or Matthews, and I get all the questions everywhere I am in the summertime. I'm on a golf course and I get the questions. Now, why wouldn't Nylander take less?
Why?
And my answer is he just took less for 4 years.
I think that's revisionist history, Dave. At the time, that deal was widely hailed as a very good deal for him.
There's no question. There's no question. But looking forward, Dave, if he's the first one to sign and they say, why won't you take a team-friendly deal? His answer is, essentially the way it played out, not the way it is, but the way it played out, I've already done that.
Yeah.
And
he certainly outperformed. He outperformed the deal. Yeah.
He outperformed the deal, and that's great.
Right.
Good for him because he's put himself in a terrific position now. If he wants to be a Maple Leaf, they're going to have to make some decisions. He's going to have to make some decisions, then team's going to have to make some decisions. And, all those contracts, when they were signed, the most unfortunate thing, Dave, was the pandemic and the fact that it froze the cap.
Right.
And you might, in another day and age, you might look at it and say, okay, those were fine deals, all of them. But the issue was the 5 and 6 years for me. You can't get maximum dollar and the shortest term available. You can't have both. You can have one or the other. But by giving them both, they let them move to their next contracts, moving to his next contract, he's still the 4th highest paid player in the league, which is remarkable. It's good agenting is what it is.
It is.
Yeah, I'm not a great fan of the team-friendly deal. I think that just compromises what a player has played himself into. And for Matthews and Nylander, for me, as much as Leaf fans don't want to hear it, these guys shouldn't be in any hurry to do anything just because you don't know what the market is next year. So, what is what's the motivation to come to a deal right now on their part? I don't see it.
Well, that's exactly the issue. It makes a lot of people uncomfortable. Like a lot of people thought D-Day was going to be July 1st, like something, major had to happen, and it didn't. Quite frankly, they could go through the entire year, and you're letting them tiptoe to free agency. But, there were 2 dates that stood out for me. One was September with McKinnon, and one was March with Pasternak, 2 high-profile, potential unrestricted free agents who signed very lucrative deals well past July 1st. And there's no reason that these two guys won't do the same thing. But it's just funny, the back and forth. For me, Jimmy, the funny back and forth is across the locker room. You know, it's almost a chess game with Nylander and Matthews to see, you know, how this is going to play out and who essentially is going to go first. Like, why does it have to be Nylander going first? They're both in the same position. So, you know, it is. And I think, I mean, I wouldn't say we really have a great feel for the personality of Auston Matthews in compared. I think we think we know Nylander a little better, like free spirit and you know, laissez-faire and nothing bothers him. And we don't really know that about Matthews because we haven't come to this point with him before, but we'll find out.
Yeah. Looking around the league, Poulin, when you make your rounds around the golf courses, you run into your hockey contacts. We were batting it around the other day. Like, which of the Canadian teams, if you had to guess, beyond Edmonton and Toronto, who've been in the playoffs, you know, fairly reliably, which of the Canadian teams could break through and become a playoff team next year? Do you have a favorite in that race?
I think it's Ottawa, Dave. I really do. You know, I like their Korpisalo move very much. And you can criticize DeBrincat and that move all you want because they gave up the 7th pick in the draft. But they got a pretty good player back in Kubalik who will fit into their top 9. They'll return a healthy Josh Norris, who is an impactful player. They'll be much better on defense with a second-year Jake Sanderson and a full-year Chikrin. And I think the new ownership group is going to instill another level to that team that you could say, well, that's not on the ice. But I know Michael Andlauer pretty well from my time in the American League with him, and we sat on the executive committee of the American League together for 4 years, and so saw him firsthand in action, and I'm a huge fan. And I think he's going to give them all of the off-ice support that maybe they haven't had, you know, through the last tenure. And I do a lot of their games. I know their team pretty well, but I think they're a team that's poised to break through. And as I say that, I know respectfully that Detroit and Buffalo, just south of the border, maybe the closest, you know, to being Canadian teams just south of the border, Seattle in the mix, but they're going to have something to say about that as well.
Well, I mean, the new owner is, he's a great businessman, but he wants to win. I think we all understand that. With Samsonov, in terms of where this can go, just because we're a week away from D-Day on this one, how do you read it?
I don't think it gets to arbitration because just flat out not much does, right? And, you know, I always think of the PK Subban arbitration where they went to arbitration, they went through the hearing, and apparently it was not pretty. And coming out of it, the owner got involved and said, I don't want to do this. And he stepped in over the general manager and said, we're going to sign him to a big deal, and we're going to get it done. And he wasn't comfortable with what had gone on in terms of, you know, it's funny. Everybody says, great, I have ARB rights now, but nobody really wants to go to ARB because it gets pretty forward and ugly, guys.
Right.
It just does, right? Like it's all aired out, and nobody quite wants to get there, and it just doesn't get there. It's essentially a tool that the players have to have a date limit, to have a forced, you know, period of signing, and I think that. You know, I think Samsonov gets done because I think he has to get done. They have to sign this guy. I mean, he's their number one guy. It will also free them up in terms of feeling, you know, the Matt Murray pressure or whatever that is. And I think they do end up using that, you know. So the arbitration, that little caveat is interesting because they're going, you know, they're essentially going to arbitration. They have that second buyout window potentially available to them. But I do think you move on from Matt Murray at this point. Samsonov's the guy, and Joseph Woll, albeit a short period of time, proved that he could be a pretty capable backup, and he's going to get an opportunity to do that.
Poulin, thanks for stopping by. Really appreciate it.
Okay, guys, have a great day.
You too.
Enjoy the weekend.
Thanks,
Okay,
Dave.
thanks. Dave Poulin with his thoughts on Nylander, Samsonov, and other things. Coming up next, Jordi Fernandez, the new head coach of the Canadian men's basketball team. That is next. This is OverDrive on TSN 1050 and TSN 4. Oh, really, guy. OverDrive, Jim, Tatti, Dave Feschuk on Mail It In Friday. Nice to talk to Dave Poulin. And as Poulin was saying, arbitration is the original yes guy, no guy game.
It is. There's only two answers, right?
Yeah. Yeah, and you pay the price for either one of them.
It can get ugly, just like yes guy, no guy.
Absolutely. Yes, it can. The Canadian men's basketball team roster was just announced, so we'll go through that. Jordi Fernandez is the associate coach for the Sacramento Kings and head coach for Canada's men's basketball team. And Jordi is with us now. Jordi, how are you? Oh, no. Okay, not yet. Sorry.
We're going to have Jordi momentarily.
Momentarily. He's on his way. I was fishing
I'll tell you
for...
what, you talk about good gigs to fall into. This is a good gig to fall into if you're a basketball coach.
Is it? It's a bit of a tough spot. I mean, you're expected to do something.
No, I mean, it's not your fault if you don't.
No.
It'll be on the players. The players are, this is incredible roster. We built this incredible talent base in Canada, headed by Shai Gilgeous-Alexander and NBA champion Jamal Murray.
Oh, that's just plenty to work with. I just think that, when you take that job, you're taking it to win.
Yeah, but this Jordi Fernandez is, he's getting a head coaching gig. He hasn't had a ton of those. He's an associate coach with the Sacramento Kings as we speak.
Yeah.
But Nick Nurse, took the job in Philly and decided he didn't have time for Canada anymore, to put it kind of unkindly. I think he wanted to probably coach, but a lot going on in Philly now. And frankly, I don't think he wants to be spending his summers in Toronto when he's coaching in Philly. So,
well, he's got to make that work. I mean, he's on the spot to make that work.
Yeah, for sure he is.
Yeah.
Because he got run out of Toronto pretty hard.
He did. Well, I mean, that's just one of those situations that it's going to happen, and you have to be ready for it.
Oh, yeah, when the team's terrible and underperforming, you're going to take it. I think Nick Nurse was bracing to get fired long before he got fired. Okay,
let's bring in the new coach of the Canadian men's basketball team, Jordi Fernandez. Jordi, welcome. How are you today, sir?
I'm doing good, thank you. I'm here enjoying the Indy 500. A little noisy, but there's a lot going on here.
Oh, downtown, the Honda Indy.
Yes.
Okay. In terms of what this, we'll get into the roster shortly. I mean, what does this mean to you? This is a big opportunity.
This is one of the biggest opportunities in my life. Obviously an honor. Extremely excited to be part of the program. So you guys, pretty sure you've mentioned it, a lot of talent. Probably the best roster this program has had either ever or in a long time. And the number one priority is to build a team that competes together and that puts the team in front of, any individual. So very exciting.
Jordi, for people that don't know you, obviously you've had a lot of experience coaching in your native country of Spain and, of course, now with the Sacramento Kings of the NBA. But how did you come to get the Canada basketball gig?
It's a good question. Probably you should ask Rowan and the program. But, they reached out to me about my availability when was the possibility that Nick couldn't continue. And obviously, once they mentioned it, it was something that, I would do, obviously without thinking about it. Obviously, I had to run it by my wife and the Sacramento Kings, but they were all very supportive for what it means to me and having an opportunity like this. So it happened quick. I didn't have much time to think about it, but my first reaction was that it was a no-brainer. So that's why I'm here.
Okay, help us understand. I mean, the roster is really good. Your style of coaching and how that meshes.
The roster, obviously, you just said it's really good. Allows you to do a lot of things. We have the ability to be good defensively because we have a lot of good athletes. We can play small and still be physical and big. We can play big because we have a skill big in Kelly, a big that puts pressure on the rim like Dwight, a lot of talent. So the way I want to coach, it's not about me, it's about the roster. So finding the best way that these guys will produce together. So far, just first impression is these guys should be able to play fast. These guys should be able to spread the floor and move the floor well, what really, really makes other teams you put them in trouble because it's really hard to guard when you have so many threats and you can play fast. Then in FIBA, if they slow you down, obviously you have to be ready for that. But once again, in the half court, we have a lot of weapons. We're physical. So the potential is right there. Obviously, it's on me now to make it work.
Jordi, obviously, you've been looking at Canada from the outside, and now you're on the inside. But when you were on the outside, I'm not sure how often you paid attention to Canada, but in Canada, obviously, there's been a lot of frustration that Canada has not qualified for an Olympics on the men's side, going back to the Steve Nash days in the year 2000, hasn't done particularly well at this World Cup tournament that you're going to venture to next month in Jakarta. But is there a theory about why Canada has underachieved from the outside that maybe we need to understand?
Obviously, I cannot talk about the past and what was done when I wasn't here. I know that this is a country that lost basketball. I think is the fastest growing sport, team sport. So there's a lot of love for this sport. That's number one. Right now, there's a commitment from the players, and as you guys know, that's very important. Sometimes you talk about how talented it could be if, and all this ifs. I think that they've been permanent lately. Right now, we have a commitment of a lot of guys. That's, to me, the most important thing. And just keep building from the structure. Right now, Canada Basketball is a first-class federation and organization. Since I've been here, I can compare with another first-class organization like the Spanish Federation, and I can tell you things are done very well, the way everything is planned and organized. So if you put two and two together, you can tell that this is going to be a successful story. This is how everything starts. It's when you start putting things together and everything buys into the process. But we all have to understand that sacrifice and putting the team first is going to be the most important thing. So if we keep just saying and thinking talent, this just takes you so far. But if you think team and commitment, that's what's going to last for a long time or forever.
Yeah, to that end, I guess it must be a good sign that you've, of those 14 guys that signed the summer core agreement last year, you got 13 of them heading to training camp. What does it mean to have a player like Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, from my understanding, who's very enthusiastic and is essentially calling players, sharing his enthusiasm about the program and essentially recruiting on your behalf?
It means the world because, like you're saying, he's making my job a lot easier, right? And going back to my experience, we didn't have to ask guys like Pau Gasol, Marc Gasol, Ricky Rubio, Juan Carlos Navarro, so on and so forth. We didn't have to ask them to be committed and play. And to me, Shai, that's what he's doing. He's being a leader. He's connecting all his teammates. And he's making sure that on their end, things also are done properly and they're ready to go. So I appreciate what he's doing. Obviously, that comes from, I think, that's something that he really wants to do because he cares and loves the program and loves the country. So that's how things start with their own leadership. So it's really good for me to see it. That's also, like I said before, going to make my job and my life easier.
Okay, so you've got the World Cup coming up. You got the training camp. I mean, in short order, you have to, get a working relationship with all these guys. You got to build team chemistry, and then you have to win. That's a lot of stuff, isn't it?
It's a lot of stuff, but I think it's exciting. I love challenges. I've been fortunate to work in different countries and live in different countries, and one of the things that I embrace is adjusting and also being part of the process. Me as a head coach, obviously I'm in a leadership role, but I'm just another one of the parts of the puzzle. So it's not about just me or one player. It's about all of us. And I know for sure that I'll do whatever it takes to make the this program or put this program all the way to the top. So you said it, a lot to do. It can be stressful, but for me, I take it as a challenge, and that's what there's a lot of joy in that, in my the way I see it.
Jordi, if this team manages to qualify for the Paris Olympics next summer, I'm wondering about what the flexibility will be to add pieces that are not part of the qualification process. And I'm thinking specifically about probably the highest profile name that's not on your roster as we speak, and that's Andrew Wiggins. Would he be still welcome to play at the Olympics, or how are you and the federation going to look at that particular issue?
So when players cannot make it, in this case to the World Cup, we also, from our side, we support and we respect their decision, right? I think that in this case, we can tell that Andrew has been committed to the program, and we would love to have him. At the same time, when there's a decision, again, it has to be respected. He's not going to be part of this World Cup, but all these guys, not just him, all the guys that are not going to be in this final roster are also part of the future of Canada basketball, right? So right now we think about the guys that are going to go and fight for a spot, and then the guys that are the final 12 that are going to be on the roster. We appreciate the guys that qualified the teams, especially during the windows. So all these guys have been part of this. Moving forward, we have a big program, and once we get to the Olympics, then we will be able to discuss all that. But we value every single player. Once again, we would love to have them all, especially like what we consider as the highest profile player. But this is how it works. I've experienced it, as I said before, in a different program. And, when it happens, you got to go and fight with the ones that are available.
Jordi, I don't know if you paint, but this is a blank canvas really for you, and it has expectations. What's the best part of this?
Say it again. Sorry, you said what the best part of?
Yeah, you got a blank canvas here, so you would look at this as a massive opportunity. But what is the most attractive part of this?
I think the most attractive part is to do something that it's never done before. For me, once again, the word challenge means a lot and gets me excited, and that's what I do, the job that I do. To me, the reality is I value winning, but what I value the most is putting together a group that are going to fight, they're going to work with each other every single day, that are going to get better and compete, that are going to stay connected and build relationships, and they're going to be selfless. So if that all shows up in the court and you guys can watch the game on TV and everybody else in Canada, and they can be proud of the way we play and who we are on the court, at the end of the day, the result, whatever happens, we'll be fine with it, because we're going to win more than we're going to lose, and we're going to be in the podium a lot of times for many, many years. So that's what I care the most, the culture.
Jordi, thanks for your time, and enjoy the Honda Indy downtown. That's going to be fun for you.
It's just like my room is right on top of it. So even if I'm not a car person, I'm still hearing the noise. So yeah, thank you so much.
You're a car person now. Thanks.
Thanks for having me.
Thanks, Jordi.
It's an honor and pleasure to represent Canada.
Well said. Thank you very much. So we have Jordi Fernandez there. Later on, we'll have Bev Priestman on from Australia, getting set for the Women's World Cup. This is kind of a frustrating story. The Canadian men's basketball team, just because, as he said, basketball, the growth of basketball in Canada is really huge. Basketball's been part of high school athletics since they started putting air in balls. I mean, it's there. It's always been there.
Yeah.
But you'd like it to go to that level that it just can't get to.
Well, the thing is, we were there. When I was a kid, 84 Olympics, we came fourth. Canada was fourth in the men's Olympic tournament. Now, that was before the advent of the NBA as for the Americans, but still, it was they were banging bodies with all the European teams in the Olympics and doing very well for themselves. And then then we had the Steve Nash era, which was very heartening and a nice performance at the 2000 Olympics down in Sydney. And since then, it's been crickets. And frustrating is a great word because there's no reason they shouldn't have qualified for Tokyo, and yet you get bounced out of the gym by the Czech Republic.
Well, it's just
in a home qualifier.
All these NCAA stars that are Canadian.
Yeah.
That you would expect that would just show up, but it hasn't. And not to say that it won't, but it hasn't so far.
Well, and the thing that I still wonder, as good as we are on the perimeter, and obviously we got a first-team All-NBA guard and Shea Gilgeous-Alexander, our only other one since Steve Nash in terms of first-team NBA. We've got Jamal Murray, a bona fide championship point guard. We've got all these great guards, and we've got perimeter guys like young Rowan Barrett's son and R.J. Barrett,
right.
And of course that's great, but sometimes you wonder, do we have enough big guys? Like, where is our inside presence? We've got some guys, but we don't have a bona fide FIBA monster in the paint. And I'm not sure if that's the reason why we haven't succeeded, but we certainly have lacked in that area historically and maybe to this moment.
Talking baseball, the top of the hour with Keegan Matheson, Bev Priestman, that we talked about that. We interviewed her last night because of the time difference. So we'll spin that around for you at the bottom of the next hour at 5:30. This is OverDrive on TSN2 and TSN 1050. Well, if you insist. OverDrive, Mailed In Friday. Jim, Tatti, Dave Feschuk with you. So just marveling at surviving the week of no content.
Plenty of content, Tat Man.
The week of no games.
We had a hot yes guy, no guy yesterday.
We did, yes. For what it's worth, we did. So the Jays are getting back, hosting Arizona, and the pitching order will be Barrios tonight, Gausman, and Kikuchi, which I guess is some sort of a debate if you want to.
Well, God, you would think Gausman would be your number one guy coming out of the break, but maybe there's a reason. We're going to hear from Keegan Matheson at the top of the hour, and he will have at that point.
He will have nailed it down.
Yeah, he will have been in a scrum with John Schneider, the Blue Jays manager. Maybe there's an explanation for why they're going that route. And, of course, you wonder after that, when do we see Alek Manoah?
I mean, he's got to be your last starter, isn't he? Don't you just sort of protect him for a while to see what you have?
I don't know. We didn't expect them to bring him back in Detroit the Friday before the All-Star game, and they brought him back in Detroit the Friday before the All-Star game.
He passed his test in the pitching lab, and away he goes.
Well, it's one game, though.
I know. Well, I think there's more goes into it than just those numbers. They would have pulled him aside, and obviously there would have been massive video to say, here's what you used to look like, here's what you're doing now. So we have to erase this part. We have to stop all these little things. Worked on his delivery, worked on his mindset, tried to rebuild his confidence. And I know that the headline was, that first in the Florida League, those numbers were just awful.
No kidding.
But that may have been trying to get him to stick to the program, whether it worked or not.
Yeah.
I would think that would be like a massive. You want to talk about rebuilding something, rebuilding a starting ace pitcher who's just disintegrated. I couldn't think of a bigger task than that, because a lot of it is between the ears and confidence. So how do you restore that?
Well, that's my thing. And I think, we had Steve Phillips on earlier in the week, and he was saying, you don't rebuild that in one decent start in Double-A after getting pounded in the Florida Complex League and then go to the major leagues with one solid start against the not particularly potent lineup of the Detroit Tigers, and then suddenly I'm back. It doesn't work that way.
No, he's not back. I mean, I think it's a slow process, but then the ultimate question is he better in the big leagues on this team where you can really monitor all that, or do you just keep him out and erode his confidence? I think he's probably better off here in a protected situation.
Yeah, I mean, I disagree, because they're trying to win games.
Well,
you can't afford every fifth day to have a starter that gets, shelled. And now, even if he's not getting shelled, if he's not a serviceable starter, if he's still in a developmental mode and he's still going through growing pains as he adjusts to whatever new reality, mental, physical, technical, it happens to be. And I'm sure it's a bit of all those things. How are you comfortable with that when they're in a race for the playoffs? They're not assured a playoff spot here, Tat Man.
No, but I think also you're facing a trade deadline And you should know what you have going into the deadline, and no better
Well-
way to do it. I mean, we're not talking about anointing anything here. He had a good start against Detroit, and lives start by start. So
Yeah.
you see where it goes. If it regresses, then you just push the button again.
I guess part of it is, look, they don't have a lot of options, right? Until Hyunjin Ryu comes back, which is, we had Atkins on earlier. I guess it was last week. Atkins was making his rounds. He came on the show, and when Hayes was here, and there's real optimism in that Ryu can be back, meaningful way, not too far away. I mean, they're not putting a timeline on it, but it doesn't sound like they're talking about September. It sounds more like they're talking about August for him. So if he can come back, maybe that changes the picture enough.
Or maybe if you stuck them both together, you'd get a reliable rotating starter.
Exactly.
Yeah, I think you have to figure out what you have. Well, there's still some time to rectify it if it's not what you want.
No, but I think the point that a lot of the people that were critical of this move that have been living in baseball their whole lives, that I've read and listened to, have convinced me that the way forward would have been more starts in the minors for Alek Manoah, just to get him comfortable, because he's making technical adjustments, which Ross Atkins indicated he is, and that they went to the lab, they had the release point, and all the rest of it was needed a tweak. You don't do it in the major leagues. This is not the major leagues is not a
test
lab.
ground. Yeah, I get that. We'll explore that on the other side. Keegan Matheson will join us on OverDrive, TSN 2, TSN 1050.